Hi and welcome back to Chef Hacker Kitchen. Today we're going to do a wonderful dish called Clams Oreganata, and we're going to do it in a way that might be a little different than you're used to. Let's get started. Alright, so what we have here are a dozen cherry stone clams. Now cherry stone clams are the bigger of the clams, and these are not really good for like clams on the half shell or something like that, but they're wonderful in dishes that are going to require chopped clams. So we're going to go ahead and put them in a pot of cold water. We're going to let them soak for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to scrub them clean, and then we'll be ready to cook them. You'll notice that I'm examining each clam, and if any of them are open, I would discard them, or like you can see, this one here is open, and if I give it a crush, a little squeeze, you can see that the clam will go ahead and retract, and we know it's still live. You never want to prepare clams that are not living. Okay, so now we're going to cover these with water, cold water. As I said, we're going to let them sit for about 15 minutes, and then we're going to scrub them clean. Okay, so these clams have been sitting for about 15 minutes. So I'm just going to take a brush. You can use a bottle brush or a vegetable brush or anything else. And I'm just going to go ahead and scrub them clean. Make sure that any sand or dirt that might be stuck on the outside is removed. While I'm doing it, I'm also checking to make sure that the clams themselves are sound. Okay, and you can probably see in the water, that's all the dirt that I was able to clean off the clams. Now, you may notice that I selected a pot that's large enough in terms of diameter so that the clams could remain in one level. I'm going to go ahead and add about, I don't know, maybe about a cup, half a cup to a cup of water in the bottom of this, and I'm going to go ahead and put it on the stove, bring it to a boil, and let it simmer for about a minute, and each of those clams will then open. Okay? All right. So we got our pots and our clam, and going to bring this to a boil, then let it simmer for a minute. One thing to note is we're only using a small amount of liquid in here. We don't need to cover the clams, we just need to steam them so they open. We're going to reserve that liquor when it's done because that'll be used in soups and sauces and stocks and things like that. Okay. All right, so they've come to a boil. I'm going to turn this down, let them simmer for 1 minute, and then they'll be ready for the next step. All right, so they have been simmering for a minute or two. We're ready to go with these. Go ahead and put them in the sink. And now I'll pull out the clams, and you can see this is what they should look like. They should be open. If they're not open, we discard them. But it looks like every one of these is opened. Oh, see, now that one didn't open, so we're going to go ahead and toss that. You get a few of those. Oh, and then there's another one that just didn't open, so those have to be discarded. All right, but here are our clams. Now, we are also going to reserve this broth because it can be used in all sorts of recipes. I like to strain it in case any little bits of dirt have found their way through the process. All right, so moving on. All right, so the next step, we're going to go ahead and give the shells a little twist, and we're going to actually use a spoon to remove the clams from the shells. Now, there's a little foot that kind of gets connected to the shell, so I like to take a spoon and just pull it out. Oop, see, now that clam broke. We'll discard it. Now, if I were making chowder or linguine and clam sauce, I would just discard the shells. But since I'm making clams oreganata, that I'm going to be using the shells, I'm going to go ahead and reserve them. Now people say, oh, come on, you're using cherry stone clams. They're kind of big and they're kind of tough. And I would say, yeah, well, for certain dishes, I would not use them. And in other dishes, where I would be combining a lot of other ingredients and chopping up the clams, then I don't mind the relative toughness, and I appreciate the extra flavor that comes, in my view, from the larger clams. Okay, whoop, broke another shell. Okay. Make sure not to get those pieces in the, all right. All right, so there's the whole clam meat right there. All right, so the final step is going to be to chop the clams, but before we do that, I went ahead and let the clam liquor cool down, and I'm going to transfer that to a container because that's just going to be a wonderful clam broth that we can use for clam chowder, fish chowder, linguine and clam sauce, an adjunct to baked clams of any sort. Okay, so let's go ahead and cut these. Now I like to sort of put these into a medium kind of a dice. So I think I said earlier, I probably wouldn't want to eat these clams whole. They'd be a little tough, but for a dish that makes use of chopped clams, I really like these larger, really flavorful cherry stone clams. By the way, these clams were harvested off the coast of New Jersey. Okay, so now we're ready to move on to the next step in our clams oreganata. Our ingredients, of course, we have the clam shells that we reserved from the earlier step. We have our chopped clams, our clam broth. You can use, 3-4 tablespoons of olive oil, about a cup of chopped celery, about a cup of chopped onion, about a cup of breadcrumbs. We have, that's about a good tablespoon or more of chopped garlic. We have 1 tablespoon each of basil and oregano, and we have about an ounce of lemon juice. Okay, let's get cooking. Okay, so we are ready to start cooking. So we're going to take a few tablespoons of our olive oil, maybe 3 tablespoons. And we're going to go ahead and saute our garlic. Leaving that in the pan just for about a minute. And when we start to get a little bit of a sizzle out of it, we're going to go ahead and add our onion. And our celery. I'm going to turn this down a bit. Now we want to cook this until the onions are just translucent. All right, so they're about translucent. We're going to go ahead and put in our basil and oregano. We're going to add in our clams. Yep, just a few in there. Okay, going to sprinkle in a little bit of salt and pepper. Now I'm going to add about a half a cup of that clam broth, the clam liquor that we reserved earlier. I'm going to bring that to a boil. You can see it's just about boiling already. And I'm going to finish it with some lemon juice. Could also use a white wine, a dry white wine would work nicely in this as well. But I kind of like the oregano lemon juice combination. All right, now I'm going to let this cool and be ready to finish it up. All right, so I've removed the mixture from the heat. And I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle in about a cup of breadcrumbs. Yeah, looks like that's going to be about the right amount. All right. The consistency you're looking for is something akin to kind of a thick oatmeal. That's about the best way I can describe it. I'm going to go ahead and put the whole cup in there. All right, now when you first put the breadcrumbs in, you're going to look at it and you're going to say, oh, wait a minute, that's much too runny. And then if you don't watch the rest of the video, you're going to say, oh my God, I better put in a few more. And you're going to dump in a little more and it's still going to be too runny. And you're going to say, oh no, and you're going to add a little bit more. And then before you know it, you're going to have a big bread cake of clams and seasoning. What happens is it takes a few minutes for the breadcrumbs to go ahead and absorb the liquid. So you got to let it rest for a minute or two. And yeah, you see that? That's about what you're looking for. All right. So now we're going to take the clam shells that we reserved from earlier, and we're going to go ahead and fill each of these with a little bit of a crown on the top of that. Okay, and I don't know how many we're going to get out of this. Remember, we lost 2 of the clams. We couldn't use them, so we may not get the full 12. We may only get 10 out of this, but who knows. No, look at that. We actually, looks like we're going to get 13 out of this, although whoever gets number 13 may truly be unlucky, because I suspect a lot of that is going to be just bread. May not be too many clam bits in clamshell number 13. All right. So now we are about ready to go with this. If I wanted to brown the top a little more than normal, for a presentation I may sprinkle a little bit of paprika over that, but really is not necessary. I'm going to go ahead and take these and I'm going to put them into a 400-degree oven for about, 15 minutes, give or take, until the internal temperature is about 160 degrees. Okay, here we go. All right. So it's been 15 plus minutes. Yeah, they look pretty good. Turn that off. And all right. So going to finish these by taking just a little bit of oregano and just sprinkling it on the top the way you would normally do with parsley. Okay. All right, and that's clams oreganato, hacked with celery and onion. That's all there is to it. I hope you'll give these a try. Now, they're great as appetizers, but also if you get the really big cherry stone clams, you can make 1 or 2 of them and use that as an entree along with a salad and maybe a vegetable. Okay, if you like this video, please go ahead and hit the like button. I'd love to hear any comments you have about this. And if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe. We're making new videos all the time. See you next time in Chef Hacker's Kitchen.